Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butz, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's Friday, February 9th, and like most of us in the LA culinary community and the food world at large, woke up to the absolutely horrible and sad news of the passing of Chef Jonathan Whitener. To say he was a giant and the legend in the scene would be an understatement. His food was incredible. His warmth was well known, and what he and Lynn created at Here's Looking at You and All Day Baby will forever impact the local dining scene. We are sending a lot of love out to his friends and family, his colleagues, both present and past. And I don't know, the restaurant industry, the service industry is really tough. And, you know, everyone has their ups and downs, but there's a lot of support out there. Ben's friends and other support groups that are industry focused, those who really understand the ins and outs of what's going on in today's ecosystem when it comes to running this type of business. So check in with your friends, check in with your loved ones, go out to eat, cook at home, do whatever you need to do to get through this time. Chef, we will miss you and hope to see you in another time. You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. Since 2009, HRN podcasts have been exploring the wide world of food, beverage, and agriculture. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. We've been making cheese in Wisconsin since before we were even a state, which may be one reason why we win so many awards for it. It's what happens when a whole state dreams in cheese. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
Hearst Ranch is a proud sponsor of the Heritage Radio Network. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com.
We talk about food, we talk about music, with musical dudes, finger on the pulse, snacky tunes.
Hello and welcome to Snacky Tunes. I'm your host, Darren Bresnitz. We are hanging out with Aaron and Hannah of Quarter Sheets, one of our favorite pop-ups turned permanent spots here in LA. We chat about how they met in San Francisco, how they pivoted to their pop-ups, serving up pizza and burgers and cake during the pandemic, and their slow opening to one of the best restaurants in the city. Hannah also breaks it down at the end to explain how you can get food from them or stop by any night they're open. And they chat about the vibe they set in the dining room every night. And then it's a dip into the archives from one of our favorite bands from Tulsa, Wilderado. The trio stopped by to talk about their album at the time and to play some live songs. Also, HRN is doing an incredible raffle to celebrate our 15th year anniversary, where people who donate to become members can win dinner and a show in cities all across America. Head over to heritageradionetwork.org for all the information you need. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy Snacky Tunes here on HRN.
Call and I'm feeling drunk again. Got this old guitar and some skinny cigarette. Not quite sure just exactly where I am, but tomorrow I'll be home. It won't matter where I've been. When the sun comes up in the morning, I'll be well on my way home. Darling, there's the time to dry your eyes, 'cause I'll be holding you in the morning light. I've been gone are the longest that I've seen, from Austin to LA, in everywhere between. But don't you worry, baby, I'll be coming home again. I'll be walking up the road, I'll be holding out my hand. When the sun comes up in the morning, I'll be well on my way home. Darling, there's the time to dry your eyes, 'cause I'll be holding you in the morning light. I'll be holding on to you in the morning light.
Hannah and Aaron, welcome to Snacky Tunes.
Hi.
For anyone who's in LA, it's pouring, but we may be done with the rain. So thanks for staying dry and being safe and making it onto the show.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for having us.
We love the rain. We're feeling very relaxed.
I actually do not love the LA summer. I'm like living for this stuff.
Oh, I was on record last year saying that if we could have this type of winter every year,
yeah,
I would be more than happy.
I mean, this particular thing is like like legitimately dangerous. So maybe a little bit like
yeah.
Of this spread out. Maybe spread it out.
yeah. Instead of like 10 inches over like 2 days, like 2 months, 3 months, things like that. I was trying to think. The first time that I met you was in your driveway. You were doing the burger pop-up out of the back of your old VW during the pandemic, which feels like forever ago, but was about 4 years ago. How does it feel to you guys? Because, I mean, that's 4 years for me, but you guys have gone through so much in the last few years.
Oh yeah, I mean it's always like a different. It feels like a different lifetime. I don't know. It's got it. It's the way. So opening any business, or just I don't know, going through that into opening a business, like the cadence of everything is really disorienting, and it kind of there'll be like a lot of like waiting on something, and then all of a sudden you are like pedal to the floor like it's like,
I feel like we don't have children, but I saw a meme that was like, it wasn't a meme, it was like about parenting, and it said the days are long but the years are short, and I was like, true.
Oh yeah. It's like the longest days you ever had, the shortest years. Yeah,
that's right. But yeah, Aaron went through like a long burger pop-up phase before we entered pizza pop-up phase, so that really was another life.
Yeah. I mean, you got to cook burgers before you can toss pizza or whatever.
That's what they say.
That old adage.
You have to learn that by living it.
Yeah. And you've been cooking for a while, both of you, right? You cut your teeth San Francisco, Berkeley area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm originally from Michigan and cooked there for years before leaving to travel around. But yes, been cooking for a while.
Yeah. I'm like all Bay Area trained. And it's funny actually being in LA now, because I'll be like, oh, I worked at all these famous places, but people in LA are like, huh? What's Nopa? And I'm like, it's Nopa. It's famous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you worked at the famous spot. You worked at Chez Panisse. People must know that when you
People know that one.
Okay.
People know that one. And I feel like now Alice is like present here in LA too. I mean, she's present everywhere.
Because of the Hammer Museum? Yeah. Every once in a while, someone's like, yeah, I saw Alice the Hammer. And I was like, that is now a very typical, like, oh, I saw Leo at like the sunset, something like that. But you, I mean, what was it like working at Chez Panisse? Because I remember going there for the first time, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, and being like, oh, here's like roasted beet and goat cheese salad, and here's like a roasted skate wing and things like that. And then you go like, oh wait, it all started here. Like this is the epicenter, and everything else, it all resonated from here, so it loses some of its importance. But you're like, no, these are the first people to really put the farmer on the menu, and
I will explain that to people, because I feel like sometimes people kind of like dismiss it a little at this point. They're like, oh, like I just went to Chez Panisse recently, and what, a mixed green salad with goat cheese, and I'm like, well, they like created that actually.
Yeah.
So, at least in California, they were the first ones who were doing that, and Alice like really brought that type of cooking. So any restaurant that you love that's saying it's farm to table now is literally a direct descendant of Chez Panisse. We're like the first restaurant like doing that outside of France, I feel like. I hope I'm right. Is that right? To me.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, let's put it this way. They're the ones who, there was probably others, smaller ones, but they're the ones who put it. For all intents and purposes, they're the epicenter of it.
That's right. So, I mean, for my first place to work, it was amazing. That's like where I learned to understand like the value of just like honoring the really good produce that you bring in. And I think that's still very much how I cook, where it's like, I'm not trying to do anything to hide the flavor of an apple, like I want my apple pie that I make to be the best apples. And then I'm going to make apple butter out of those same apples. And I'm going to toss the apples and the apple pie in that apple butter. I'm not going to use any other spices. And it's just, I feel like, wow, like what are the spices? I'm like, there are no spices.
Yeah, there are no spices.
Just the apple.
Apple reinforced.
Yeah, but also really important, because sometimes people, like you have to make sure you're using the best thing, because you can't just use some shitty apple and then be like, but it's the apple.
I can't. And listen, I'm at TJ's every week, but you're saying that my Honey Crisp is not going to cut the mustard.
Listen, it'll cut. I like Honey Crisp.
There's a wider window for an apple. I think we should.
It's more like I'm like, apples are easier, but maybe like the strawberry you buy in December from Trader Joe's, like perhaps don't use that in a pie in December.
I don't know. My heirloom tomato sauce in the dead of February.
Well, we're lucky to be in California.
Now, you two met. You have like a meet cute restaurant story that is really awesome to have met in the field. But why don't you tell it instead of me just reading the note that I have?
Well, it's a good tie into the last to the Alice stuff because it's a restaurant that exists because of her. Mike Tusk opened Quince. I don't know if it was directly after working for Alice, but like that definitely is a restaurant that exists because of her. So we met at. Technically, I was working at Catonia. I think Hannah's kind of doing both in that pastry room, like kind of serviced both restaurants, Quince and Catonia. So you're kind of doing double duty. I was a pasta cook. I entered the building as a line cook, and like with very little California cooking like experience with in a professional kitchen. I had done some private chef work in the Bay Area just briefly before that, and then that was my big first San Francisco kitchen job. After I gave up trying to get hired at Tartine.
He used to bring chat loaves of bread.
Just a wall, just a fortress of people.
Hannah, we're like, oh, that's cute. That bread's a nice Italian. That's so nice.
Good job, buddy.
Didn't get that one, but landed. Like I honestly like landed a great job for a line cook. It was a new restaurant. He's super talented. People I worked around were super talented. But yeah, that's kind of the pasta cook element comes into it because we this hallway that the pastry team and this like backline pasta zone shared was we could just basically see each other just all day long because of this hallway and this like door anyway.
But also really quick, do you know that, I don't know, do you know this, that Mike hired me? I didn't even do a stage. He just saw Chez Panisse on my resume and hired me. And then the first day I got there, he walked me into pastry and he was like, his voice is like, Hannah's on the pastry team now, and then left. And everyone was like, who are you? I was like, I didn't. I thought I was trying out. Like, he just hired me. But luckily, I was good.
Look, yeah, I mean, wow. I'm sure that, Aaron, that you love that. You're like, yeah, like I kept trying to get hired at these spots, and I finally get there. And Hannah, you're like, well, my first plot was Chez Panisse, and then they, that just opened all the doors.
I mean, but that speaks to like the importance of that experience. Like, on your resume opens doors. I mean, just literally that's, I didn't have any of that. I had like a resume of like spots in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but that's not.
And basketball players.
Yeah. I mean, that's that old joke. It's like, how am I supposed to get New York experience if I've never worked in New York and everyone needs New York experience?
Yes. You have to lie and cheat and steal.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, I worked there. Please don't call about my references.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
The one thing that I like about San Francisco that I think more than any city is that they're like a go deep and not wide type of place for cooking, in like the same realm that like maybe like Italy is, and where it's just and Hannah, you hit on this, is like we have the best ingredients. I mean, obviously they have some of like the more experimental cooking, but not like Chicago, not like New York, something like that. It was like keep refining, and I think I can see that transition and that reflection in your work, because you were focused on like pizza and cake, which could, when you just say it's like cool, like they do pizza and cake, it's like no, it's not just pizza and cake, it's like pizza and cake. Yeah. And I have to imagine that type of refinement of doing pasta, of doing pastry, of doing that type of stuff led to the base of what you built Quarter Sheets on.
100%. And because Aaron and I both learned to cook in that environment, and we grew up as cooks together, always simultaneously. We always were doing like little pop-ups together. Aaron was a private chef and I would make desserts for him, for his the families that he cooked for at the time. I think that at this point we're like so aligned in terms of our palates and like what we want from our own food and the food of others that it's a little creepy. It's but it just works really well together. I mean, and I think that's true, especially of someone like Mike Tusk, who is, I think we break a little bit more rules than perhaps our mentors did, but I think that's what you're supposed to do. You like learn to paint like the painter and then you create your own style, but it's definitely clearly evident like where we came from.
Right. And until someone who's working for you does something, you're like, whoa. And they're like, No way, they become my mentor. Oh no. Turn into my mentor.
Don't experiment like that.
To have to explain my rules to someone makes me sound like a crazy
Yeah, me
person.
too.
So-
Yeah. You're like, I'm gonna explain my rules to you, but that's after a couple of deep breaths out on Sunset. Like, just give me a second. So you're in San Francisco, you guys have met, you're working together. What pulled you south to LA? Did you just feel that you had pushed up against what San Francisco had to offer, or was there a job that brought you to the city?
I'm from here, actually. So I grew up here, and then I went to Berkeley, and that's how I got to Chez Panisse, because I was just right down the street at college. So when I had been kind of pushing us to move back for a while, I just sort of missed it. My friends lived here. It wasn't really restaurant related at all. In fact,
it was the opposite.
It was the opposite. By the time we agreed to move here, I mean, we were living in literally like a basement in San Francisco. And I was like promising Aaron the world. I was like, we moved to LA. We can like live in a giant house, like it'll have a backyard. And we live in a house. It's better than the basement. It's fine. You've seen it. We'd still rent.
It's a nice house. It's a nice street.
Yeah, I was like, I'm done with cooking. Like, I'm burnt out. I'm bored of it. I like can't do this anymore. That's how I felt. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I thought leaving San Francisco would be like the only way I could sort of make a transition. And it's funny now because I've like dug in even more. But it took me a while to get there. And I think that the thing I was lacking was I wanted to be part of more of the bigger picture. And I think often like pastry is its own kitchen, its own hours. You're kind of separate from the rest of the team in a lot of ways. And you don't have, I never did really have that much connection to the business side of things. And that's actually what I'm really interested in. So it's the only way to get both was to open my own business, which I sort of didn't realize that as I was doing, but now I do both things, and I'm very stimulated and very stressed out, but it is more fun and more fulfilling to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not why I moved to LA.
Yeah.
But
The why
was nebulous.
It was like it's just down the road from San Francisco. It felt for me, not knowing anything about LA, I was like, oh, it's just like, we're still in California. We'll just go down there, just do it there. I didn't have a plan. There wasn't like, I'm going to career change. I was starting to get the little sort of that tickle where I was like, I think I probably need to do something else. Doing the whole private chef thing post sort of, I left Katonia after 5 years. And when I left, I was in like an exec sous situation, pulling crazy hours.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to.
Yeah, no, of course.
But yeah, existing as like the private thing, I did private chef stuff for probably like 10 years after that, something like that. If I include the LA stuff, it's like living in exile. It's a very like, you leave the kitchen, you feel yourself becoming kind of less relevant. You understand that you like that place that you were at, but there's a reason you shouldn't go back. Like,
yeah.
It's a very like isolating situation.
Yeah. And that even though you're doing a better thing for yourself and still cooking and putting up good plates, it's the opinion of others, which creeps into your mind, real or not.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that and how things shifted during and after the pandemic and how those opinions seem to matter less and less as the restaurant industry changes. We have a song from the archives here on Snacky Tunes on HRN. welcome back to Snacky Tunes. I'm here with Aaron and Hannah of Quarter Sheets. So you've left San Francisco, you're in LA, and the pandemic hits, throwing the entire world into chaos. Now, Hannah, you were working at the short-lived M. Georgina, which I remember opening and its closing being like, oh, this is just a harbinger of things to come. Because everyone was like, oh, like, well, they opened in the pandemic and they didn't have any runway. And I was like, you guys are giving the business of running a restaurant a lot more credit. Like, it's like week to week, and some people will hang on. So what was it like? And obviously this was like your hometown, but you still had pulled up stakes and you were in a relatively new city for living and working. How fast did you two realize that you had to do something else?
Well, okay, I just have to say that the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, while they were very scary, it was a very amazing time for us. I'd say the first 3 weeks maybe.
Sure.
So
I think it was
not to brag, but it was before reality,
yes.
Of course. And it was like, as a restaurant professional, you don't often get 3 weeks, paid time off to just hang out. And it was like we were having themed parties in our house, just the two of us, and Melissa sent me home with steaks and clams, and we just had all of this stuff, giant bags of. I took all this stuff home from pastries, so it was sort of fun. And I also found that the first week I kind of just relaxed. I would go on long walks outside and read and not change out of my pages. I was loving it. And then the second week I was like, oh, I feel like baking, which is not something that has happened to me in my home in a long time, because once you're cooking in professional kitchens, you're not trying to go home and bake on your time off.
No,
it's not my hobby anymore. So I was there and I was like, I'm in the mood to make cookies. I'm going to make bread. I'm going to hand roll croissants. And that impulse had not hit me for 10 years,
It's so interesting to be awakened like that. And sometimes it's just that pause. Now, obviously, let's just go on the record. Awful time around the world.
Terrible time.
People were dying. There was a lot of terrible things.
And the restaurant closures.
The restaurant closures and people who are still not surviving from that. But it was the big pause, and to reflect and being like, and I think a lot of times people, especially in the industry, you're like, what matters? What matters to me? What matters to the industry? And a lot of the time, I think all the stuff strips away. And Aaron, you were talking about this, about feeling on the outside and people saying, you're not much in the game anymore. It just came down to we're in it to survive, and sometimes on our own and sometimes together. And I have to imagine that type of mentality plus falling in love with your passion shapes what's to come next for you too.
I mean, it was also, I'm sorry, but it was also kind of, once I started doing that baking, it was kind of falling in love with hospitality in general. Because again, I was saying when you're in pastry, there's a little bit of a disconnect. You're usually not there when people are eating your desserts. You're gone for the day, And when I started baking, then I started posting things on Instagram, and then I started delivering these pastries and bread to my friends at first, and then that circle expanded, and I was actually interacting with people, and then people started coming to our house to pick up. And I think it was such a time of isolation, and this was one small interaction that people got to have 5 days a week, and that I got to have with the people that were actually buying things for me, and they would take them home and eat it. And then I started to see the same names, week over week, and I just never had that experience of having these regulars that I was aware of, I guess. So it's kind of, I mean, it was a time of isolation, but a time of deep kind of reconnection for me to the thing that I love doing and to the people who enjoyed eating it.
Mm-hmm. It was this realignment of community, and it became so much more direct about who was cooking it, who your customers were. It became smaller, but it became more dedicated. And I had the pleasure of having both pizza delivered and also going to your house. And one of the things I remember, especially during that time, was going to your house and you two were cooking and the music was playing. And I just remember being like, oh my God, someone else curated a playlist that wasn't me.
It's funny that...
What? Yeah. I mean, that playlist sticks with me just because I was like, oh my God, I didn't put a song on. Like someone picked for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually love someone doing that for me now more than ever. just to, I understand that feeling because like making a mix or a mixtape or whatever is like, for me, it's like cooking the entire meal, assembling that, getting it to the table. And then you're like that feeling where you're like, I just have spent so much time with this. Like I need to shelve it. Like I can't, I don't want to be with this right now.
No. Yeah. I mean, listen, and when I make a mix, I hadn't made a mix in, I don't know, 5 years. And we did this event, like the first event after the pandemic. And I sent it to my friends and my brother. And their first one was like, well, this is a very Darren playlist. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, these are like the same like 30 songs that I've always put on mixes everywhere.
Sure.
So you're doing the pop-up, you have the playlist. Oh, for people who were there, what was on the playlist? Because it was really good.
Oh, wow. What was on the playlist?
You're going to look. I want to say, too, that Aaron deserves a lot of credit for that because at first, I feel like Aaron is more of a vibe creator and he's a record collector.
Great vibes.
You are. And when I was first doing it, I was like trying to manage the kind of like business aspects of it. And I didn't think as much about the pickup experience like on that porch with that table. So I would go, because people didn't, and also I started doing it earlier than Aaron and people didn't really want to get out of their cars. So I would actually walk out to the car and like take it to them and then like put it in the back seat they would just open the trunk and I would put the stuff in the trunk because we weren't sure how much interaction was okay.
Right.
Or like, is this my pod or whatever? And then when Aaron started doing it, he delivered the pizzas at first and then we started doing pickups and he made that porch experience. That was such a huge part of the Quarter Sheets Pizza Club, experience, like coming to pick up, going and seeing the disco ball on the porch, the music playing, the lights. He like set up a whole light situation outside. We had our little tchotchkes on the table. And if you come to our restaurant now, it like looks like that. Bill.
Yeah. I mean,
we're like thirsty for any level of anything that could resemble a dining room. Like let's have a little bit of that back in our lives was kind of what we were going for.
I mean, forget about someone making a playlist. Like the fact that someone had cooked for my family and I was like such a huge break. And, not to jump too far ahead, but you did have this vibe, you did have this feeling, and being able to transfer that to like a brick and mortar spot is really tough because, as you mentioned, like all like the realities of the business start coming in of like rent and permitting and occupancy and things like that. So how did you ease into the pop-up at your own house into the space where the restaurant is now and still keep the same vibe?
I think easing in is a good way to put it. We had, we were still coming out of, when we opened New Year's Eve 2022.
2022. New Year's Eve 2021. It was the eve of 2022.
Yeah. Okay. So we were still, there were still like people were like masking and like there was a lot of like to go stuff happening still.
Yeah.
And as to go only. So we kind of put everything at the very front of the restaurant, built this kind of funny, like a friend of mine who kind of is in the set design world, like came in and just built this sort of,
I mean, it was a set. He built a set.
Yeah.
That's
so we like
awesome.
I went to I don't know somewhere south of here to chase down this like cool kind of like wet bar basement bar thing that I just kind of put at the front of the restaurant, and then that was the point of sale, and then built a set around that, just so that there was some level of like, I don't know, we're not just like shoving food at you and like you take it and you go.
Yeah,
like, maybe it's okay for you to like hang out for a second, like we can talk. So we just kind of put that there while we did this dining room build out. Yeah. And it kind of served as, just kind of, our point of sale. And then also sort of like, you can't really see past that into the chaos that is a gutted dining room. With
we had to open because we just opened this by ourselves. So we had to start selling food. So we got the kitchen finished first.
Do you mean because of financially you had to start selling?
We needed to be selling food like right away, and we needed staff, and But we added staff slowly, kind of like just as we needed it to help us, one at a time, as opposed to like a schmancy restaurant opening. You're going to have your GM in place and your whole staff is in place. You're going to have a week of friends and family, and then you're going to open. We were like, we're open. And actually, a funny thing about the music is that at first we were like so stressed out that there were a few days that we were like, oh, we'll just let the front of house staff choose the music.
How'd that go?
Bad.
Well, what was the first? Do you remember the first song you heard her album that you're like, this is a terrible mistake?
It was Ace of Base.
Yeah. I think there was like a cool, like funny disco mix happening, and then like YMCA came on, and I was like, I don't know, like. Like I don't need no one needs to hear this again.
Yeah.
Like,
you're like
hate on it, and
you're like, I get it. Like I understand the irony here, but like not the first impression that you want.
Right.
And then we were like, okay, we gotta like take a moment.
So now we're kind of in control of that again, but that's
I mean, what can one expect if they're walking in? What are they hearing?
It's all over the place. Really, and that's just kind of a reflection of how I've collected music. You know, I'll be obsessive about something for a year and just kind of collect. But when we got the dining room, part of the dining room is that I have moved part of my record collection in here. So we'll do LPs like
no skips, whole sides only.
Yeah, and like it's also like an older record player. This is actually like probably going to freak any like audiophiles out, but like there's like a stacking mechanism where you can like stack LPs and they'll drop automatically. Anyway,
well, it's the only way that we could have a record player functioning when we're running service in a super busy way, because you can't stop and change the records. So we need a whole stack that's
I love
like created, and then we flip and do like the other side.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we play like, there are like some labels that I love. Like obviously like Numero Group is a big one. Those like kind of hits all the way through a lot of the time. I'm a fan of like some R&B stuff, like anything like Mazel Brothers have produced. I'm playing that stuff. There's a fair amount of cumbia that plays. I play it. We actually do mixtapes, like actual tapes in here as well. That. So I bring in anytime I can get my hands on a Mississippi Records tape. I'll get those going, and those are kind of all over the place. The mixtape shop in Brooklyn is a great source for they'll do a mix every month or so.
Yes,
great source.
I've thought about them in a long time. That is a great idea.
And then. Calvin Johnson mixtapes from K Records.
Yeah.
Those tapes are just
happening. All that. Yeah. I love that.
We also listen to NTS radio a lot as a new thing. And that's like just like all hits. And that's actually a great way to introduce, because sometimes even though Aaron has like thousands of records, we find ourselves on a little bit of a loop, you know what I mean? And so then you introduce NTS.
That's what I was saying about like the other somebody else doing the mixtape.
Yes, of course.
You're like your mind is kind of locked in a certain way, and then somebody else has something completely different to say.
We're also really lucky. 2 of our staff are like very good DJs.
Oh, so they're allowed
have DJ nights, and
they're
I know
allowed to put
it's not very like democratic, but we're like, you can choose, and you can.
you know they're never dropping YMCA.
No.
So you have this spot, and you really refined your pizza and your cake, and I think, and we touched on this a little bit, but like it's not your typical restaurant. Like it has its own rhythms to it. It has its own vibe. It's a very tight menu. But I think because of the way that people started looking at restaurants and being like, you need to survive, just staying open is part of success, that has actually allowed for you to have that success, because you're not trying to chase this, like, what will people say? What will people think if we just do slab cakes and pizzas and salads and small sides and things like that? Have you found freedom in this new iteration of the restaurant world?
Yes, for sure. And I think that allowing ourselves the freedom to not do too much definitely was a really important part for our sanity and creativity. Like the menu fits on a tiny piece of paper. That's all there is, but it's like we try at least to make it like thoughtful and varied, and we do still change the menu pretty frequently. I think sometimes we're literally bound by the little size of our menu, and we do wish we could do a little bit more. That's something we're working towards. We also run a very robust to-go operation. It's essentially like two businesses in one. We're running a to-go slice shop and we're running a dine-in restaurant. And I think sometimes the way with which we have approached it in the past has confused some people.
Right, where it's like, I didn't get to order online, so I'm not coming in because I didn't know that there was pizza available.
Or like still now, we've been here for 2 years and we've had dine-in service, like full table service for about a year and a half. People will come and order to go, and we still have kind of a set up front. There's like a little wall, and they'll peek around the wall and be like, oh, you can dine in? And we're like, yes. Yes, it's a whole thing. If you want to wait 2 hours, you can, but we're exploring ways to make that easier for people to understand. We'll be adding reservations soon. So I think that, I know. Do you like that? Good,
I mean, look, I have 2 kids, and with a babysitter, like knowing they can get a reservation or when I'm eating somewhere is sort of like a huge factor in where we eat when we go out for date night.
Yes. And so that's like our next step. But I think that because of the sort of, I don't really know what the word is, the way we opened it, which is very, again, like people see us, we're always here. People see us, they recognize us. We still have people who are in Glendale coming here, that we have been granted a little bit of leniency. That whether we deserve it or not, it's very nice and generous. People know we're figuring it out and we're evolving, and people, I think, kind of feel excited and bonded to like evolve with us, it seems like.
I mean, I have to imagine that you have a customer base that's followed you since the pandemic, and that feeling of what you were saying of like hospitality goes a long way. Like you know, because people remember that meal, the drop off of the pizza, like the cake when the world was in a very scary and crazy spot, and they had this comfort from the two of you, from literally just the two of you. You've earned a lot of goodwill.
Yeah. I guess
it seems that way.
And we didn't we didn't open expecting anything, and that's true. I feel like people say, "Oh, we didn't care about like press." Whatever. We really did not. Like, we just opened because we were out of space in our house, and we wanted to keep doing it, and we were having fun. And then we opened this, and clearly, whatever we have done has like spoken to people, and that is really, really nice. But all we ever really wanted was just to make food in a place that we enjoyed being. So.
I mean, for those who might been living on a rock, the resonation and people liking it is a bit of an understatement. Given, I mean, where do you want me to start? Like, best new chef, best restaurant, New York Times, LA Times, your placement on the 101. You know, I think it speaks to the deep, not wide sort of mentality that you brought from the beginning of your, not the beginning, but from like when you guys sort of hit your groove as chefs and people in the industry. Because a lot of people don't, there's always pivoting, there's always changing. How do you feel about all the accolades matched with like what you're doing?
Yeah, it's confusing. I mean, honestly, full disclosure, like when the New York Times thing happened, that I like woke up to a lot of DMs from my peers being like, this changes everything, just so you know. And so you don't really, like, it changes things as in your business, there's a new baseline now. Right. And so you don't, we didn't open seeking those things. But when they happen, they're impactful and like meaningful. I mean, for like this little, what is just a neighborhood restaurant, a good neighborhood restaurant, to be, thought about, written about on a national level is great. It's crazy. It's a crazy thing to us. And not being humble, it just literally just seems really wild.
Yeah. No.
And again, this speaks to like the sort of like cadence and the momentum and how things have happened, just like happened very quickly too. Like, so
I feel like it's easier for both of us to recognize like I recognize how good Aaron is. And when I taste his food, and it's like such an annoying answer. People will be like, where's the best pasta? And I'm like, the one Aaron makes for me at home. And I like really do think that, like, he's such a good chef. And I think that it's easier for me to be like, of course, like Aaron deserves those accolades. And it's probably easier for you to be like, oh, Hannah like does.
Well, I think what we're sort of touching upon sort of what I value in a restaurant and what great restaurants are is like you get to the restaurant, the great restaurant is greater than the sum of its parts. You put together a good package and people see it. Like this is not like what I am interested in is certainly like what happens here. And that includes pizza, right? But I'm not necessarily like, we need to be the best pizza place in LA. Like I'm excited when someone says I had a great meal at Quarter Sheets. Like that's where I am. Like that's when I'm feeling like this is a success, when that's sort of what is said. Because that speaks to like, yes, the hospitality thing, this like larger package, and there's a lot of just putting pizza in a box and putting it in someone's hands. But there's also like, but this dining room with much, much more to offer and like a lot of thought and intention that went into it. So yeah, that's sort of how I can make sense of someone being like, 25, 50 restaurants in the nation this year. That's when I can kind of make that make sense, I think.
I mean, look, I've always felt that survival and the best restaurants are neighborhood restaurants at their core, just serving the community, which is what you two have been doing. If people want to come and visit, or people want to follow along, or stay attuned for reservations or order online, where can they go? How can they follow and get to pizza and cake?
I'm gonna do it. Okay.
Do it. Do it. On the record. This is how
these are the ways that you can do this. All right. If you want pizza in the evening, you can log on to Talk, which is our pre-order system, and order a whole pie starting at 10 a.m. the day of. You can't order before the day of. Even if there are no desserts listed, that doesn't mean they're sold out. You can usually add one on to your order when you come to pick up your pizza. You can also come to the restaurant and order pizza to go from one of our lovely staff members who's working the front door. There might be a long line outside, but we try to get through it quickly, and we're working on systems for that. Yes, there is only one line outside. So much. I want to go back. There's only one line outside, but that's the line for ordering to go or putting your name on the list. But again, we do our best to get through it quickly. Once you're inside the restaurant, you experience the full dine-in service. A server will come to your table. We offer wine, beer, and an extended menu that's not just pizza. There's sides, there's specials. We have baked ziti, we have meatballs, we have salad. We have these incredible beans. And usually we also offer some plated desserts. We do ice cream. We do like warm pear cobbler was a recent one. So that's a full pizza parlor thing. In the future, soon, this is so complicated. It's not making it better.
I didn't even know you had this in you. This is great. I'm learning things right now.
I feel like I'm doing it.
No, you're doing it. You're doing it.
If anyone's still listening, by the end of February, we're going to offer reservations. Those reservations will likely open 30 days in advance. We're a super small restaurant. I assume they'll book up quickly. We have 9 tables right now, and we'll still reserve space for walk-ups at the bar, and probably 1 table for walk-ups as well. So that's the next evolution. But we'll still keep doing the pre-orders and to-go.
Okay. Now, can I still DM you for a pizza, or is those days over?
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
There we go. There we go. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. I can't wait to come in with the fam. I will definitely make a reservation in advance and figure it out. And thank you to Phoebe and the team for helping set this up. We have a song from the archives and then a live performance here on Snacky Tunes on HRN.
Honey, darling, sweetheart, tie me down. I wish everyone's so kind if all they have is nothing much at all. You were all I knew, so now I dream of you from far away. Babe, honey, darling, sweetheart, forget my name. My heart's dead anyway. I build the walls up deep inside my mind. I'm keeping the world out as long as I'm alive. But one day you and I will go to sleep and not wake up. Where can we go from here, and how am I supposed to give a fuck?
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. There's a reason when you think of Wisconsin, you think cheese. Cheese is a huge part of Wisconsin's history and future. In Wisconsin, the state of cheese, the tradition of cheese-making excellence began 180 years ago, before Wisconsin was recognized as a state. Immigrants traveled to settle in this lush green hills of Wisconsin, bringing their cheese-making traditions with them. These storied skills, combined with the freshest milk available, created a cheese-making culture that is uniquely Wisconsin. Wisconsin's 1,200 cheesemakers, many of whom are third and fourth generation, continue to pass on old world traditions while adopting modern innovations in cheese-making craftsmanship. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
Hearst Ranch is a proud sponsor of the Heritage Radio Network. The Hearst family has been raising cattle on the rich, sustainable native grasslands of California's Central Coast for over 150 years. Piedra Blanca Rancho in San Simeon is the original Hearst Ranch, founded by George Hearst in 1865. George's son was the famous publisher William Randolph Hearst. In addition to being known for building the iconic Hearst Castle, William was, like his father before him, an avid rancher. In his words, "I would rather spend a month at the ranch than any place in the world." Thanks to one of the largest land conservation easements in California history, a joint effort with the California Rangeland Trust, the American Land Conservancy, and the state of California, the working landscape at Hearst Ranch will be preserved forever. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com.
Hello and welcome back to Snacky Tunes. I'm one half your host, Greg Bresnitz. We are joined by Maxim Rainer Helmrich of Wilderado. And we just realized that we have now 4 or 5 years, East Side Food Festival. Shout out to Ann Lee. You were on stage. I think it was the Home State Sisters. So good to see you. Nice to see you again.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, great to have you. So let's start with I always have to ask this, like, how are you guys doing? Musicians, COVID, pandemic, easing out. How are things feeling? How are things looking?
I mean, things feel remarkably good, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that we're kind of trying to work through right now is figuring out what it's like to play live again, because we just didn't for a year. And so there's a little bit of anxiousness in that. But other than that, man, it's been a pretty cool year, to tell you the truth.
Why is that?
I think it's just I've appreciated having this big pause that I didn't have to create. It was just something that came along. And I think I was a lot more tired of traveling than I realized. So it's just, we just had this big peaceful break and finished a bunch of stuff we've been wanting to finish, had a bunch of conversations we needed to have, that kind of thing. It was like a pretty therapeutic year, to be honest.
like a proper housekeeping, if you will.
Correct. Yeah, for real though.
I find that amazing. I mean, I find that with a lot of creatives, both chefs and musicians, who just like they started their project and you guys started like in 2015 and you just kind of hit go. And then you kind of think like, well, the only way we're going to stop really is like a massive hiatus that's self-imposed or we break up. So
Right.
to have this time where like everyone's sitting it out, that you're not looking over your shoulder. Some people didn't take advantage of it, but like, you know, I know you just touched on it, but like what's one really kind of good example of how you use the time to make the band better?
Well, we never, I mean, like you just said, it really was kind of start and go for the band. And we never had much time to just kind of decide what we actually wanted to be. I mean, I'm not sure we figured that out still, but that's kind of a thing we've been talking about a lot is, I mean, because we kind of started it, wrote some songs, recorded them, and then we're just always on tour and recording. And there just was very little thought behind anything, you know what I mean? Or intentionality. It was all just kind of reaction. And now we're still home and, we're getting ready to go into a record cycle. I guess it's just started. The first single's out. So now it's like we're having time to try and decide what do we want to be, you know what I mean? And that's kind of been fun to at least be able to think about. I don't know if it's going to change anything, but it's been cool to just kind of identify ourselves a little bit.
I mean, the opposite of that is things you aren't, right? Like that's also, we're not this type of band. We don't do these type of things. We don't write these type of music. Have there been some things that you've just taken off the table? Like, okay, we're not going to go in this direction. We're going to just, you know, we might have done that before, but now like this is not an avenue for us.
Yeah. Wow. That's a interesting perspective. I mean, I think maybe more so we've spent so much time just kind of doing things that were asked of us, and not spending much time trying to figure out if that's something we actually wanted to do. And so now we're going into this period where instead of like saying every idea that's brought up isn't cool or we want to do that or we're not that, we don't want to do that, we're kind of trying to figure out what is it that we actually want to do? What can we produce? What can we create? What content would be in line with what, you know, we are and are wanting to be? But does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, obviously it's a work in progress, and you know, to figure out what type of artist you are can take decades. But I really resonate with sometimes you just like hit go and you're just like, yes, 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 no, no, no. But you don't really know why you're saying that, or you think you should be doing something, but doing that actually takes time from doing something else.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's it's an interesting time. I think something we've kind of been plagued with as a band is just kind of thinking things aren't cool or being afraid to not appear cool or what is cool. And, you know, what we have these bands that we like and, you know, how do we be like that? And how do we feel proud of ourselves? And I think we're trying to shut that down a little bit more and not worry about all that shit and just think like, what do we like? What do we love? Why are we approaching each thing by trying to identify the aspects of it we don't hate? And how can we kind of have a more clear understanding of what we love and what we're wanting to make? It's been weird. I'm not really sure where it's led us, but it's definitely been like a shift in thinking.
Yeah. I think those fruits take longer to bear, but you just got to get down that path. Can we hear a song?
Yeah, for sure.
What are you guys going to play for us first?
Let's do Head Right. I've never really done it like this, so I thought I would give it a shot. But yeah, this is just a little acoustic version of our current single.
All right. Head Right, the new single, the beginning of the record cycle from Wilderado here on Snacky Tunes on HRN.
I hide my hope inside my heart until I'm home again. I told you once, but I was lying. What's the fuss? You seem alright. holding heat against my hip. But when you play with fire, you end up choking on desire. Which way am I going? Gotta get my head right. Gotta beat the sunrise. I gotta shake this feeling. Gotta make a killing, but it always takes me so far from home. I push through people on the street. There's some place I'm supposed to be. Why can't I calm my mind enough to see what I might find? Each moment, every single thing is coming at me like a dream that I'm supposed to free from the corners of my sleep. Oh, somebody help me. I gotta get my head right. I gotta beat the sunrise. I gotta shake this feeling. I gotta make a killing. Oh man, gotta feel my soul out. I gotta catch my focus. I can't lose this current. I got no assurance, but my love is waiting for me back at home. The only way to lose is be alone. Am I alone? Am I alone? Am I alone?
There's been a lot of changes in the creative process. You have gone on record saying that the best way to ruin a song is to take it too seriously. How have you lightened up, or how has the band collectively lightened up to create this new batch of music?
I mean, that's funny that you pull that quote out of this. That's kind of just what I'm talking about right now. Excuse me. I mean, writing songs for me, at least, is such just a natural thing that kind of like when it happens, it just happens. And then there's like this, basically it happens, it gets made. And then we spend all this time like analyzing it and trying to figure out what we want the song that's already written to be. And so Headwright's really kind of a funny example of that, as we just wrote that tune. It was so much fun to write. We were just all jamming out, so straightforward and easy. Lyrics came real fast, and then it was like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months before it was recorded. And in that time, like everyone started freaking out, thinking, is this kind of music we want to make? Is this we want to be this loud? Do we want to, when can you listen to this song? I mean, the only time you can listen to songs is when you're like raging in your car. You mean like all these kind of negative thoughts start coming through, and you're listening to other music and cruising Spotify, and it's like, man, this is chill. Like, I love this vibe this song's giving me. And then you start thinking about Headwright, and it's like, what? Why the hell are we just bashing away all the time? Blah, blah. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. That's like, it's just bad thinking. It's negative thinking. It's all these things that don't really need to be there. So I think we're trying to just not be that serious. I mean, it's okay to have songs that you're not into all the time. Like, I think part of being a songwriter is just writing songs, and some of them don't connect, and some, you know, for a while, or if they do it first and then stop connecting, that's okay. I think you can be too plagued by like being your songs, you know what I mean, or being a song.
I mean, it seems like, as you mentioned, you're getting back into the album cycle. You are a collection of songs. People have been saying that, we're going to like the one song era. You're defined by that. And I think like commercial pop in one way, but if you're still releasing records, there's multiple sides to your personality, each embodied with the different songs on the record.
Correct. I mean, just like you are as a person, right? I mean, we all do things every day, but just because you get mad to spilling a bowl of cereal or something doesn't mean that you're an angry person. There's going to be 20 other opportunities to react differently throughout that day. And I think songs are just the same way. But it's interesting because you get to spend so much time on them. And then ultimately you decide if you hear something we write or not. You know what I mean? So there's like a scrutinizing process that should be a part of it, but we're just trying to be less cool about it. You know what I mean? I think that's something that like I could admit to. I've been trying to be cool too long, and it's gotten really exhausting, dude. Yeah. Plus, it's like that's the antithesis of cool, right? Like the people I think are cool have never thought about being cool in their whole lives.
Yeah. All right. Can we hear another song?
Yeah.
What are you gonna play for us next?
How about Morning Light?
Call and I'm feeling drunk again. Got this old guitar and some skinny cigarette. Not quite sure just exactly where I am, but tomorrow I'll be home. It won't matter where I've been. When the sun comes up in the morning, I'll be well on my way home. Darling, now's the time to dry your eyes, 'cause I'll be holding you in the morning light. I've been gone are the longest that I've seen, from Austin to LA, in everywhere between. But don't you worry, baby, I'll be coming home again. I'll be walking up the road, I'll be holding out my hand. When the sun comes up in the morning, I'll be well on my way home. Darling, that's the time to dry your eyes, 'cause I'll be holding you in the morning light. I'll be holding on to you in the morning light.
You worked with some old Snacky Tune friends, I Am Sound. Paul and Nikki, we go way, way back. How did you connect with them, and how did you hook up with them along the way?
Man, I liked those people so much, especially Nikki. I have a lot of respect for her. I thought she was one of the coolest people I ever met, to tell you the truth. And her dad got to have dinner with him in New York, which was pretty rad. I had nothing to do with that. That was our manager, Chris. I mean, when we put that first EP out, he, I think, blasted a bunch of people, and they came on board. It was kind of a short-lived process. I think we were with them for like that one EP. I actually remember we had finished that. We were needing more music, and I had written a bunch more music, and they told me it was all too shoegazy. It was kind of funny, and she said, what you guys really need to be doing is, putting more emphasis on your harmonies and that sort of thing. So that week I wrote the song Favors. I don't know if you've heard that song, but that was kind of just like, thought I'd give Nikki's advice a little try. And I don't know if I ever told her that before, but Favors is for you, Nikki.
And then I just have to ask, as a Fleetwood Mac fan, you went on tour with two of the founding members. Anything you can share? I'm sure you've been asked a million times, but like, what was it like traveling with, Lindsey Buckingham and Christine McVie?
It was cool. I mean, it was, I could talk a lot about that. I think traveling with them was like they would show up in black Suburbans a couple hours before the show. So I don't know what traveling with them was like. I know what it was like to eat their catering every day, and that was awesome. It really was awesome. I mean, they had like veggie, vegan, and meat options for every meal. They were really professional and really into what they were doing still, which was pretty cool to see. And then they were just they involved us a lot. I mean, we were making that Favors EP, mixing it on the road while we were with them. And I remember they would come in and say they had been listening to the mixes in the bus, or the band would, he came in a couple of times, Buckingham did, to just kind of tell us he thought we were doing great, to tell us he thought our band was cool, our songs were cool. I remember they would come into our dressing room several times. Lindsey specifically came into our dressing room a couple of times just to tell us we were doing great and that he loved our songs and just to kind of like brick-brack. I mean, it was rad. We would just kind of kick it with him. And same with Christine. Christine was a little bit more elusive, but if you would pass her anywhere, she would smile and squeeze your hand, or she gave me a kiss on the very last night, told me she loved me. It was awesome. Dude, it's just the coolest thing ever. I know, it was the coolest thing ever.
That's amazing. So as you mentioned, Head Right is the new single. You guys are dropping back into album cycle. Can I ask what's coming in the next months? Is that even a fair question to ask in spring 2021?
Yeah, I mean, we're asking that question all the time ourselves. We're being very plastic with everything and trying to adjust as we need to try and get a tour as close as we possibly can to putting the record out. But it's just I think we're gonna be pretty generous with singles leading up to the record. There's going to be another one that comes at the end of June, and then probably another one midsummer, and then one will come with the record itself. So just start putting out songs.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, we want to make sure we have time for one more song, but where can people find the music, sign up for updates, get ready in anticipation for the tour and the release? How do they find everything?
Well, I mean, Instagram's usually the best. That's where we try to do our best keeping everybody up to date. Wilderado.co. We've got a mailing list. Just all the internet ways.
Amazing. Well, Maxim, thanks for being on Snacky Tunes, and a big thanks to everyone who tuned in this week. What is the name of the last song you got for us?
Help Me Down.
Great. Appreciate everyone listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of Snacky Tunes here on HRN.
wish I had a stone to throw at something real, a treasure of my own, so I could feel. I dropped an anchor in the sand and watched it drag on through the sea. The shackles are off my hands, but I ain't free. It's such a lovely shade of blue. Help me down, don't pick me up. Give me something that I can touch. Just a way here, I've loved you all along. The summer came in fast, but it hasn't learned to last. It came to town just to turn you brown, then it passed. And now I'm freezing in my car as I'm driving under the stars. I've been thinking of you like I tend to do in the dark. I guess I never learned to choose. Help me down, don't pick me up. Give me something that I can touch. Just a way to hear I've loved you all along. Help me down, don't pick me up. Give my hands a bit of luck. Just a way to hear I love you while you're gone. You might something that I can touch. Just a way to hear I loved you all along. Help me down, don't pick me up. Give my hands a bit of luck. Just a way to hear I love you while you're gone. I need a way to hear I love you while I'm gone.
We talk about food, we talk about music with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse, snacky tunes.
Snacky Tunes is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.